What are some problems with the bodily view of personal identity? Well, for one, we can look at what is known as the brain transplants argument, or maybe the brain's transplant thought experiment. And that's what we're going to do in this lesson. We're going to have a look at why the bodily view isn't actually that convincing as we might have thought. We're going to start by taking a little recap of the bodily view, just to sort of brush up on what it means and what it is. We're going to outline the brain transplants argument against the bodily view. We're going to outline what it says, and then we're going to discuss this a little bit more in a lot more detail. So, when it comes to the recapping of the bodily view of personal identity, the bodily view of personal identity states very simply, in its most simple form, that what we are is our body. If we have a body, we are people. Simple as that. The philosopher Judith Jarvis Thomson argued that the bodily view is the simplest and easiest to understand. It's the easiest view to understand when it comes to the issue of personal identity. She said that the set of collective features that make up our body are what constitute personhood, and that's what really, that is all that we can talk about when it comes to what makes a person a person. There are at least one or two key objections, however. I'm going to look at the first one in this lesson, and then I'm going to look at the second one in the start of the next lesson. The second one, they're both relatively abstract, but they're also relatively convincing at the same time. So we're going to have a look at what is known as the brain transplants argument. This is a key argument against the bodily view of personal identity, and this view takes many different forms. What I shall do is look at the view taken by the philosopher Sidney Shoemaker, which is, yes, his real name, in his book Self-Knowledge and Self-Identity from, I believe, 1969. So a very old, quite an old piece of philosophy, really. It comes in the form of a thought experiment. Okay? Let's assume there is some kind of advancement in medical technology where we're able to have a brain, we're able to take it out of the skull, operate on it, and then put it back in the skull when it's fixed. That's not beyond the realms of possibility when it comes to medical advancements. It's not something that is conceivably impossible. We could think that might be something that is possible to do in the future. Suppose there are two people going through this surgery at the same time. Now suppose that the surgeon makes a mistake in putting the brains back. He accidentally mixes up the brains so that they go into the wrong skulls. So the two people, they have their operation, but they put them in the wrong skulls. So they put the brains back into the wrong bodies. These two patients are called Tom and Jerry. That's why I've got an image of Tom and Jerry here. These I just picked two names out of a hat, really. Well, picked two names from a famous cartoon series, but moreover, let's get back to it. Tom's brain is put in Jerry's body, and Jerry's brain is put in Tom's body. So they've switched bodies, effectively. And then what happens is Jerry dies. So Jerry's body dies. So that means Jerry's body dies and Tom's brain also dies. And he is immediately cremated. So all that is left from this horrible experiment, from this horrible surgery, is Tom's body and Jerry's brain. We can call this person Terry, as like a sort of an amalgamation of the two. Now, according to the bodily view of personal identity, Terry, this new formulation, is actually just Tom, because it is Tom's body that survives, not his brain. It's only his body that survives. So therefore, it's actually Tom. If you were to ask somebody who supports the bodily view, it's Tom that has survived this experiment. Also, according to the bodily view, Jerry is dead and no longer exists, because Jerry's body is gone, but not his brain. His brain is in Tom's body. But Jerry's body has been cremated with Tom's brain, okay? However, when we ask Terry, who is the body of Tom, about his memories, his thoughts, his experiences, who he thinks he is, he takes Jerry's memories and Jerry's thoughts because it's Jerry's brain. So he has all the personality traits, behavior, experiences, memories, psychologies, mannerisms, everything that makes, Jerry, effectively. So it seems a lot more likely to suggest that Terry, this amalgamation, is in fact Jerry, not Tom, and that all has changed is Jerry is in a different body. When people interact with this amalgamation with Terry, they see his body and they think he's Tom immediately, at the start of their interactions. But when they speak to him and get to know him, it becomes immediately clear that he is Jerry, just in Tom's body. So really, it seems to be the case that Jerry is not just his body, he survives when his body is actually gone, okay? So therefore, the bodily view cannot be true. The bodily view of personal identity states that it can't be true, seems as if we take this experiment into account, it's actually, in fact, Jerry who has survived, not Tom. So what does this look like in a formal argument? Well, we can take this into sort of a premise and conclusion form if we're going to be really philosophical about it. Okay, so we can have the first premise to suggest that if the bodily view of personal identity is true, no person could survive without their body, and no person's body could survive without them. Okay, they're one in the same. Premise 2 is Jerry survives without his body according to the brain transplants thought experiment. We can accept that to be true. We could also accept the sort of the opposite of that Tom's body also survives without him, without him existing. So therefore the bodily view is false. So effectively what we're trying to say here is it doesn't make logical sense to accept that the brain transplants thought experiment could happen, but also accept the bodily view of personal identity. It seems to be a lot more likely the case that what makes a person is more than just their body. And the brain transplants thought experiment does highlight what it could be, and that is something to do with their brains, their thoughts, or maybe even their psychology. Okay. So as a lesson task, can you think anything wrong with the brain transplants argument? There are a couple of issues that people have taken with the brain transplants argument. Can you see if you can pick up on any of them? And put it down in any kind of discussion area so we can have a little debate going, so we can see, if the brain transplants argument is really convincing. And in the next lesson, we're going to have a look at the psychological view of personal identity, which is the second thesis of personal identity we're going to explore in this course.